Bet you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Indeed. Thanks, Don, who will be joining us in the second hour to discuss primaries and polling. There's still more to go on that. We have a lot to discuss today. All right, it is Friday, May 27th. Get your questions in. Laura is here. She is here. She will handle things like me hitting the button and messing the audio issue up. If you don't follow me on Getter, do so at People's Pundit, on Twitter at People's_Pundit. Sign up on Rumble, the People's Pundit Rumble channel. And of course, the best way to follow me is Locals. All right, peoplespundit.locals.com. We'll go over some of the stuff that Locals has already been looking at today when it comes to, well, a lot of stuff, but the Roe v. Wade issue, specifically abortion, the abortion designation question, and we are going to show you why the support for Roe v. Wade is not what it looks or appears to be. The truth of the matter is, and I've said this for a long time, but I've never publicly done a survey to show you what I have done privately for many, many years, which is that people don't know what the hell Roe v. Wade does. That's the truth of it. They do not support abortion in the trimester that is protected by Roe v. Wade. When you tell them about different stages of development and ask them whether or not they support or oppose abortion during these stages of development, they will in turn then tell you they do not. And then when you ask them again about Roe v. Wade, they will tell you they do not support it. In the beginning, you asked, do you support Roe v. Wade? Well, everybody knows from popular culture, Roe v. Wade means no coat hanger, right? Geraldo? But when you ask them in depth about their beliefs about abortion, and then you explain to them what Roe v. Wade does, all of a sudden, that support largely vanishes. And the truth of the matter is, vast majorities in this country support restrictions on abortion that we have been seeing in recent proposals, which I will show you. Big majorities of pro-choice voters support restrictions even in second and first trimesters. Big majorities of people who will initially tell you they support Roe v. Wade support restrictions before the period that's protected by Roe. All right, so we're going to get into that. We'll also take a look. We have some annual trackers that we have to go over. Biggest enemy, greatest threat to the U.S. has changed this year somewhat on some levels, and we'll go over that from last year. Also, of course, generic ballot is now out. It's public. Everybody knows about it. We'll also look at, interestingly, how views have changed. We had last week the first public hearing on UFOs, otherwise known as UAPs. We'll take a look at that as well. All right, but without a doubt, you'll be able to see how news does still influence opinion, as opposed to when you ask people about certain things when the news isn't hot about it. All right, what is generally their base belief, and then peg it up against whether or not, gun control would have been a similar circumstance, similar issue where it would have showed that. Most people will tell you right off the bat they do not believe gun control will stop mass shootings. They will tell you that. But then when mass shootings happen, support for gun control, certain restrictions, goes up temporarily, and then it falls, it collapses again, including red flag laws, by the way. All right. So with that in mind, I will just say this as well. I would like to take a little bit of time. Maybe I'll wait for Don to do it. And I would like to point out people like the stupid ignoramus who works at a senior editor at the Washington Post, who either openly lies to the readers of the Washington Post, which is probably the case, or is so ignorant about guns that he pushes misinformation, or maybe it's disinformation. If the case is that he does know what he is saying is a lie. The truth is, and I will say this, and it will be controversial, but this is what the study suggests. The sad events, tragic events in Texas were likely a media-inspired event. What do I mean by that? For a very long time, since Columbine, when law enforcement and academia really began to study this issue, they have been telling the media, both law enforcement and academia, to handle these mass shootings differently. They refuse to because all they give a damn about is their anti-gun agenda. They don't care that they kill kids. They don't care, because if they did, they would look at the obvious evidence. When Buffalo happened and I saw them go down the same road they always go down, I did it on purpose because I knew it was coming. I tweeted a bunch of a story we once did for People's Pundit Daily, but also the studies, look at the end. They're all cited in that story, by the way. Once upon a time, people like Mother Jones would be on my side. There were actually one, especially, but two journalists at Mother Jones as early as 2015 who used to report on this along with people like us at People's Pundit Daily. They just have been ignoring the FBI and the media and the academic institutions, from the ivory tower to the FBI. They have been ignoring them forever because they want gun control. And they don't care if that costs your kid. They don't. At this point, it's just flatly evil. I tweeted that because I knew they would inspire another event, or at least the probability. If you read the studies, if you take the time to read the studies that I tweeted out, the probability that the way they covered Buffalo would lead to another media-inspired event was extremely high, greater than 90%. Media is a contagion. The inspire period, the contagion, the media social contagion, media inspiration period is 13 days, typically, give or take. When it comes to extremely high likelihood, from Buffalo to Texas, it was 10 days. So this wasn't to pat myself on the back and say, "Oh, see, he was right." This was to make a point, and they know this. The editor at the Washington Post who wrote that crap article, which is bogus, by the way, idiot. Armalite was founded in 1954. Maybe you don't know your World War II history. When did World War II end, jackass? We have to deal with these people and this ideological agenda that they have, and it is literally costing people their children. But they don't care. Let me tell you, when I went to both my middle school and my high school, I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I went to violent institutions and had to fight damn near every day. You had to walk through the front door, which was the only door open. You had to walk through the front door, go through metal detectors. There were police there. They had private security, a security guard who, when things were good, her worst job was basically to walk around and bust you smoking pot or bust you smoking cigarettes. She had a dangerous job. Everybody hated her. I didn't. I found her to be rather funny and entertaining. She used to get into fights with the fire department all the time. She was like Joe in Newark. Principal Joe in Newark. Chain the damn doors. I don't care what the fire department says. I'm keeping the gangs and the guns out of my school. I'm chaining the doors. She did it. She kept all the rest of the entrances locked all day long. The police were at the front, and that's it. You wanted to walk through the front door, that's what you had to do. Guess what? It was a very blue state with very serious gun control laws. Many people who grew up there hunting, it was like everything New York did, they had to do. And many people who grew up there had a hunting culture, had left the state because you couldn't even get a shotgun anymore. You wanted to hunt, it was bow and arrow, that was it. Yet still somehow, everyone from the age of 13 on had a burner. But guess what? They didn't bring them to school. Because Miss Cofield's going to catch you with that burner. You're not getting through the front door with that gun. They don't want to do any of that. Instead, they want to continue to ignore the FBI. They want to continue to ignore academia. They want to continue to give your children up to their agenda. Because that is what the data shows. And we'll go over some of it. It's conclusive. Conclusive. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bump that, even though Don and I will probably start talking about it a little bit in the second half. I'm actually going to just read a few of them right now so you can actually go and look at them yourself. Take a couple of minutes to educate yourself on this issue, because the anti-gun element of our society is extremely ignorant to firearms, the history of firearms, the Second Amendment in general, and definitely the culture, the Second Amendment culture in this country. I have had few people who are in the gun culture ever become proponents of gun control. I know many, many, many former anti-gun people who, once they actually opened their mind and said, I don't know anything about this issue, it's time for me to shut up and listen to other people, became gun enthusiasts, became stark defenders of the Second Amendment. I know many of those people. I know nobody who lived in the South and was part of the gun culture who moved to New York City and became all of a sudden a raving proponent of gun control. I know many who left New York City and the liberal Northeast who now live in the South and are stark defenders of the Second Amendment. Why do you think that is? Because one side is completely ignorant and the other isn't. And it is that simple. The Second Amendment, ladies and gentlemen, was ratified in December of 1791. The modern phenomena of school shootings started in 1966, the Texas Tower shooting, which I'm doing right now, what the media does, but I'm doing it to make a point here. What is it? What could have happened? It's a cultural problem. There's something wrong with us. We are raising young men who have a lower testosterone rate than prior generations and are yet extremely violent. Don't you find it at all a little bit interesting that the modern phenomena of mass school shootings started during the 60s counterculture? Nobody finds that worthwhile? We're sick. Our society is sick. But we went hundreds of years without gun control, literally, without there being a problem. So it's obviously not the Second Amendment. It's obviously something else. So, like I said, there are a couple. Every time this happens, I sadly have to point out the same damn thing every time. And it's tragic that this is the way it goes, but unfortunately, this is the way it goes. So, for those who want to know, I'm going to give you the link right now. PBD still does have a paywall, but it's not going to hit you the first time you look at this link, okay? If you want to follow along with what I'm about to go through, give me 2 seconds and I will send it to everybody because I think it's important. It's important for me to stop. It's important enough for me to stop the show and send this to every single comment that is watching the show right now. And Getter, unfortunately, the link is too long for you. So Unfortunately, you'll just follow along if you want to grab it from another thing. I will, Laura, can you like tweet it or post it on Getter so people can see it and read along with it if they'd like, okay? Because we're going to go over this, and I'm not going to take forever on it because we have a lot of polling to do, but we are going to go over this because it's disgusting. These people are willing to sacrifice your children. They know all about it. Believe me. Every single editor at every single one of these major outlets know what they're doing. They don't care. Your kid is worth it because they want gun control. And by the way, they don't care how illogical their position is. They want you to give up their guns and let your children get protected by the police. Let you get protected by the police while we are literally watching the police with AR-15s, M4 version, basically their version of the M4 strapped over their shoulder, doing nothing. A mother who is handcuffed has to get out of her handcuffs and run in and save her own child. Yet they're asking you to put more faith in a system that once again failed these children. No, thank you. I will defend myself. And damn sure I'm going to teach my children how to defend themselves. Studies show the media inspires copycat shootings, school shootings, and they induce mass killing. There is economic and a law enforcement consensus that media is the contagion, not the solution. At least not yet. This was back after Parkland. Following the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, CNN held a town hall, by the way, where they held up Sheriff Scott Israel, who we now know to be a completely incompetent ideologue, but they put him next to Dana Loesch as Loesch, whatever, and who was the NRA spokesman at the time, and he got all the claps, she got all the boos. It was a complete charade. They invited the now embattled Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel. He did not survive that battle. A known gun control activist, gun control supporting members of the community, and Dana, a spokesperson for the National Rifle Association. She was basically, it was like, the lone Dana here against everybody. The perpetrator's name, which will not be mentioned here, was spoken aloud countless times. CNN put its political agenda first and disguised it as a town hall meant to further discussion on school safety. Given the wealth of data collected by academics and law enforcement agencies studying the phenomena, it's time for Americans to demand media outlets acknowledge their role in school shootings and mass killings. It's time for Americans to demand they take responsibility and proactive measures to minimize the likelihood of a prior mass shooting inducing another. Before we get into the data, let's define what it is we're talking about. All right. A mass shooting is properly defined, not the way the Washington Fake Post defines it. It is properly defined in academia as a public shooting in which one or more perpetrators with a firearm murders at least 4 victims. Researchers in the field have argued the modern phenomenon of mass shooting began in 1966 with the tragic incident at the University of Texas. And I'm not going to mention his name, but those of you know the tower. All right. It's also important to note that the data used in these studies may vary. For instance, one study may have isolated 18 to 29-year-olds, while others reviewed all age groups for potential copycats. Some studies included suicidal perpetrators, while others did not. Nevertheless, the academic and law enforcement consensus is clear. The media inspires copycats in school shootings and they induce mass murder events. The media is the contagion, not the solution, at least not yet. That being said, not all media outlets have refused to take responsibility, much to their credit. Seriously, much to their credit. Mark Fallman and Becca Andrews at Mother Jones have done great work documenting, quote, what was known back then as the Columbine effect, unquote. On April 20th, 1999, 2 teenager boys fatally shot 13 people and injured 24 others at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado. The Mother Jones investigation found the shootings inspired at least, are you ready, folks? And because you don't hear about them. You'll only hear about them when the media decides it's a great case to push gun control. It's a great case to use to try to win elections. Get this. Mother Jones' investigation found the shooting inspired at least 74 plots or attacks across 30 states. And at least 14 cases, Columbine copycats plotted their attacks on the anniversary of the original massacre. You heard nothing about many of these. Quote, individuals in 13 cases indicated that their goal was to outdo the Columbine body count, unquote, they wrote. Quote again, in at least 10 cases, the suspects and attackers referred to the pair who struck in 1999, name redacted, as heroes, idols, martyrs, or God. And at least 3 plotters made pilgrimages to Columbine High School from other states, unquote. Since Columbine, the Federal Bureau, there's a scroll effect going on, I'm sorry. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has been devoted to researching the potential causes of copycats. Supervisory Special Agent Anjay Simmons previously led a team of agents and psychology experts that researched more than 400 of these cases. They do this to claim credit and to articulate the grievance behind the attack, Mr. Simmons told Mr. Fallman. And we believe they do it to heighten the media attention that will be given to them, the infamy and notoriety they believe they'll derive from the event, unquote. In response, the FBI proposed the, quote, don't name them campaign. Similarly, Tom and Karen Teves, whose son Alex was among 12 killed at a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado in 2012, proposed a no notoriety campaign. By the way, remember what happened with that one? It was Sean Hannity's fault. It was Sarah Palin's fault. And they went on, breaking the rules of these campaigns just to hurt Sean Hannity, just to hurt newly elected Tea Party members, to hurt Sarah Palin, and to hurt the Second Amendment. They didn't give a damn. What's a few lives of children in pursuit of the greater cause? Academic research corroborates the assessment of law enforcement agencies, though the, quote, Columbine effect, unquote, is referred to as a contagion. You have got to read these studies, or at least give yourself a little bit of time, folks, to go over them. And there have been more since I wrote this. Contagion in Mass Killings and School Shootings was published in 2015. It concluded there was, quote, significant evidence that mass killings involving firearms are incented by similar events in the immediate past, unquote. And here's a passage from it. On average, this temporary increase in probability lasts 13 days. And that's an average, so it's give or take. And each incident incites at least 310 new incidents, or P equals 0.0015. We also find significant evidence of contagion in school shootings, P's probability, for which an incident is contagious for an average of 13 days and incites an average of at least 0.22 new incidents. Folks, it was 10 days from Buffalo to Texas. 10 days. Worth noting, this study excluded foiled plots where individuals were caught actively planning a shooting but had not yet carried out their plan. They also stressed it is difficult to accurately assess how high of a percentage media-induced copycats represent because so many of the perpetrators kill themselves. So you cannot find out about their manifesto or their motive. All right? Another one, mass shootings in the United States from 2006 to 2013. Social contagion or random clusters. It was published in 2017. Questioned the short-term contagion. However, the study warned of even longer-term copycat effects. Indeed, many perpetrators cited events that took place before they were even born. Spoiler alert, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a random cluster. These are social contagions, and the media is responsible for it. Reducing media-inspired mass killings, lessons from suicide prevention, was published most recently in 2018, and it was even more conclusive. Quote, generalized imitation requires the presence of some model to prompt imitation, and we suggest media reporting methods as the prominent model inspiring future mass killings. That's you, Brian Stelter. That's you. James N. Mendel and Jonathan W. Ivey, the authors of the study, go on to, quote, evaluate media reporting guidelines and imitation behaviors to identify reactive and proactive strategies that could minimize the likelihood of one mass killing inducing another. Yet another study, don't name them, don't show them, but report everything else, not only found that media-induced events are real, but they're also more deadly. Quote, these fame-seeking offenders are particularly dangerous because they kill and wound significantly more victims than other active shooters. They often compete for attention by attempting to maximize victim fatalities, and they can inspire contagion and copycat effects. However, if the media changes how they cover mass shooters, they may be able to deny many offenders the attention they seek and deter some future perpetrators from attacking. But they don't give a damn. That would not help them in the cause of abolishing the Second Amendment. These findings have palpable implications. Big media, a term we use, right, to refer to the cartel of corporate media outlets, have always been supportive of the gun control agenda. That not so subtle support generally took the form of an anti-NRA or anti-Second Amendment storytelling narrative. And again, you know this is how long later, and we're still in the same freaking cycle. The NRA has never been more weak than it is right now. And yet, they're the devil for the last few days. But in recent years, it has transformed into production news and blatant activism, as we saw with the CNN town hall. In their desire to strike at gun rights while the iron is hot, they ignore all the impact their coverage may have on deeply alienated students prone to committing these acts, let alone the causes of their alienation, which is the heart of this all. What are we doing that is making these children, particularly these young men, what are we doing that is isolating them? Perhaps all of this upsetting of the social order that has completely toppled a man's role in society has confused these children who are also living, many of them, under broken home situations, funded by the federal government. Americans must start to ask themselves whether they will allow big media to put their political agenda over the safety of our children and loved ones. In turn, big media executives and journalists must start to ask themselves whether their political agenda is more important than their children and loved ones. And I think since I wrote this, we have an answer because they know this. The answer is they don't give a damn. The answer is your child is worth the sacrifice to them. Your child is expendable in their pursuit of eliminating your right to defend yourself against them, by the way. And all of these studies that we referred to here, and there are more, are all at the end. And by the way, just because they don't look like it doesn't mean they aren't. They're linked. Read them, ladies and gentlemen. Read them. Instead of reading garbage on the Washington Post from some jackass who has no idea about the history of firearms. They are willing to sacrifice your child. It is that simple. It doesn't matter to them. I am, at this point, pondering whether they're willing to sacrifice their own. They all know this is not some new information that I am dropping on them with a brand new study. They have been told this for years. The FBI has pled with newsrooms over this. Law enforcement agencies all around the country, local law enforcement agencies, they don't care. They want ratings, they want clicks, and they want your right to defend yourself. And to them, The lives of a bunch of children are worth it. It's disgusting. And if they succeed, yours will be next. Because anybody, any group of people who's so callous with human life like this are at their very core mass murderers waiting to happen. When it comes to this, they're not ignorant. They know. They just don't give a damn. The overall issue of firearms, the point and history of the Second Amendment. I mean, well, somebody like Joe Biden, exactly how they know about this issue. You weren't allowed to have cannons. Yes, you were. You were. In case Hamilton got his way with a standing army. You don't even know what I'm talking about, do you, Joe? You have no freaking clue. Because you were at best a C- student at Delaware. And that's what we're up against every time there's a school shooting. If they took your guns away, believe me, these kids would make horrible weapons of destruction. Horrible devices. They would do whatever it is they needed to do. Because by the way, prior to Pulse, the biggest mass killing event ever wasn't even committed with a firearm in the United States. It was committed with an explosive device. But none of that matters. You still have fake forecasters like 538 spending 6 months of people's money because they're not profitable. Years ago, trying to figure out how they could possibly fudge the data to make it look like gun control would actually work. Only until somebody left that pathetic excuse for a website did they go and write an op-ed basically blowing the whistle. We spent 6+ months trying to distort the data to make it fit our worldview. But we failed. Disgusting. Let's get to some new polling here. All right, there is the I'm going to use the locals version of this crosstab. I'm going to leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen. I think I made my point pretty freaking clear. Don't you? I don't know how much more time we got to spend on these losers. I do want to bring out this first graph first. We're going to go over biggest enemy and everything, but first I want to talk about congressional leaders. For locals, has seen this before. This is on, is it? No, it's locals only. Eventually it will be on Big Data Poll. You can go to our Everviz chart. Again, I hope at some point we find a better solution to do this with you guys, okay? Especially when you want it for public consumption. But this is the trend for the congressional leaders' favorability ratings charts on for the public polling project for the 4 leaders current that since we've done this. It defaults to Chuck Schumer. The only reason why, just for people who want and care to know about things like this, whoever controls like if Republicans take both chambers, these will move over. And the leader of the majority or the in power party will be first. But I put Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi first for both these because they are currently the majority leaders. All right. Or the speaker, right? All right. Chuck Schumer is typically the least hated member of Congress. All right. Which is really saying something. But followed by McCarthy, because McCarthy for a while didn't have very many people who knew a whole hell of a lot about him, as you could see with that purple line. As it gets closer to the midterms and people are going to decide who they want to vote for to control the House of Representatives, they're going to want to learn more about their leader, all right? And so they have started to begun to know that. Schumer has made quite a fool of himself in the last couple of months, and I strongly suspect that's what happened here, especially with the Supreme Court stuff. With the what appears to be the expected ruling, he really made an ass out of himself on numerous occasions. And there are people who said they did not know of him before clearly moved over to unfavorable, and the somewhat favorable and very favorable numbers went down, while very unfavorable clearly rose, as you can see in the dark red number here. Last poll, 29, only 29.4% had a very unfavorable opinion of Chuck Schumer. Combined, he's never really high favorable, but he's one of the lowest or least hated because the negatives aren't, on net aren't as bad as some of the other leaders. But this month, he really took a hit. You can see his favorability did go up. I mean, was at 33.8, and now it went to only about 30. So he did fall a little bit with favorability, but some of that really just came from the never heard of, fell. And the now the number that's very unfavorable is 37.5%. We have never seen it that high with Chuck Schumer before. That was really surprising to us. 14.4% were somewhat unfavorable. So Chuck Schumer's now got a majority unfavorable favorability rating. And that is not typical for Chuck Schumer. I'm curious to see whether or not that goes down, or if paying attention with everything Democrats have done while this cost of living, because we're going to look at most important issues today. And I think it's going to blow you away, especially when you look at some of the details, who is, citing these economic concerns. I think obviously, that may have something to do with it, but overall, he has been public and made, some pretty asinine statements while people are over there just trying to put food on their table and gas in their car. And we're in a very basic needs election, like I told Emerald Robinson earlier this morning. By the way, don't miss Emerald. Go back and check out the replay if you're missing it. We had a great conversation. I hope to get back on Emerald. I enjoyed my time with her. I like her show. All right. But anyway, we had a lot more we could have spoken about. And, hopefully we'll be able to do that. All right. But let's look at Mitch McConnell. All right. And you guys are seeing this, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I couldn't see through the other screen. All right. Mitch McConnell is always extremely unpopular. Let me get a sip of water here. Oh my God, my tooth, Laura. Mitch McConnell is always unpopular. He usually has the second worst, very unfavorable rating compared to Nancy Pelosi, but his combined unfavorable is always worse than Nancy's, a few points worse than Nancy's. All right. This month, you can see 42.8% now have a very unfavorable opinion of Mitch McConnell. That is up significantly from last month when it was 32.9. All right. He was about at like 30% favorable. You can now see he is in the mid 20s. At best, I'm being nice. 23.7. All right. Another 21.2% have a somewhat unfavorable view of him, which basically was about flat from last month. It went down just a little, but combined, we're looking at 64% unfavorable. This guy is super unpopular. We'll look at the crosstab in a bit. I'm going to briefly go over and just show you by party how this is, but I can tell you right now, locals, you got it. Check it out. Look at Mitch McConnell's favorability rating by party. At least Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi have the support of their own voters. The reason why Nancy Pelosi is, horribly hated, and you'll see that in a second, is not because her own voters don't like her. It's independents and Republicans being overwhelmingly, have a negative image of her. But her own voters nevertheless like her. When it comes to Mitch McConnell, get this. A total 5.0 flat. 5% of a very unfavorable opinion of Mitch McConnell. Only 6.2% of Republicans do. 6.7% of Democrats do. 2.3% of independents do. And 1.3%, and we have a large sample this month, folks, for third-party voters. So 1.3% of third-party voters have a very favorable opinion of Mitch McConnell. There are actually a half a point more. I can see that, Laura. There's we're having a tornado warning or watch over here. I don't know which one, but keep an eye on it, Laura. All right. It's actually a half a point favored to Democrats. They're basically a half a point more Democrats have a very favorable opinion of Mitch McConnell than do Republicans. That's how much of a failure Republican leadership is. It really is incredible, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so while we're doing that, that's what's fueling that. Let's look at Nancy. Nancy has a 49.7% very unfavorable opinion, and another 11.2%, however, who have a somewhat unfavorable view of her. So overall, she's about 61% too, roughly about 61. Mitch McConnell is overall more unpopular at 64. So she's about 3 points better. Mitch McConnell does not have that huge of a very unfavorable, but he's well on his way at this point. 42.8% have a very unfavorable opinion of Mitch McConnell, while 49.7% have a very unfavorable opinion of Nancy Pelosi. If you remember 6 months, 12 months ago, Mitch McConnell was generally in the 30s of very unfavorable. Nancy Pelosi was about where he is now. So the trend for him is headed in the wrong direction. But again, the difference is very clear. 57% of independents have a very unfavorable opinion of Nancy Pelosi. 82% of Republicans do, and 51% of third-party voters do, but only 9% of Democrats do. Very favorable, still 34.1 among Democrats. Another 4 in 10 Democrats have a somewhat favorable view. So the difference with the Republicans and Democratic leadership is huge, and I got to say this every month because it is that important. Democrats represent their voters. Republican leaders like Kevin McCarthy do not, which is why he is headed in the wrong damn direction. Only 22.5% this month, down from 27.3%, said they have never heard of or have no opinion of Kevin McCarthy. Look at where all of that went. Last month, only 24% had a very unfavorable opinion of Kevin McCarthy. Now, it's 31.2%. Kevin McCarthy is headed to Mitch McConnell territory. Congratulations. Less than 30% of a very favorable opinion. That's it. Kevin McCarthy is now 52.8% very unfavorable. 52.8% unfavorable. And only about a quarter favorable. I propose to you that there is no way to fix that. I propose to you that Kevin McCarthy will be an unpopular leader forever. For as long as he is a leader, he will be unpopular. All right. And by the way, Rumble rant on the gun rant in the beginning, we'll just call it the People's Pundit intro rant. To Tony or to Tone, he said, Rich, I agree with everything you're saying, but it isn't just the leftist outlets. Even Tucker and the Epoch Times named and or showed the Buffalo and Uvalde shoot killers. All must be shamed. You know what? I totally agree. I didn't see that, but if they did, abso-positively. You are not supposed to do that just so you can be the first one to do it. You could easily say, this shooter and things about him to report everything. Like you said, don't name them, don't show them, but report everything else. You could absolutely do that. But they don't. I've been looking at Fox, I don't know when the last time is I watch Fox except for Tucker. I do. Sometimes, not all the time. I just don't have the time. But I don't routinely watch Fox anymore at all. And I can tell you, though, even when I did, they always did this. They always did it. And they blame Sarah Palin. After Colorado, they put the bullseye up. Or Arizona, after Arizona. All right. I wouldn't agree. That's another really great locals question. Democrats are proposing, and Rick Scott caved like a over this, that to purchase some types of military style, you would have to be 21 years of age, and they are not military style. My M4 in the military had 3-round bursts, all right, among other things. The M10 that I have does not have the same capabilities. So they may look like scary weapons, but they're nothing more than semi-automatic rifles. All right. Democrats are proposing that to purchase some types of military, you would have to be 21 years of age. Would you agree to that if they also raised the voting age to 21? No, I expect to get lit up for even asking. I'm not going to light you up on that. The answer is no. The answer is no. At 18 years, you are a legal adult. You are entitled to citizenship. You are entitled to citizenship. If we're going to be consistent, then you are entitled to your inalienable rights. End of story. Rick Scott caved like a over that, and he rose the age of that you could purchase firearms. By the way, I don't know why Ron DeSantis has not reversed this by now, but he increased the age to 21 to buy something like an AR or something. That's not even who uses the firearms to commit violence. Gun violence is overwhelmingly committed by criminals in urban America with handguns, not rifles. Even the choice of mass shootings has been largely handguns. Now in the modern era, that has tended to change, or modern, last 10, 20 years that has tended to change. But in the beginning, outside of the first university, 1966, he used a rifle. And by the way, and it did have sidearms, but a lot of times after that, they used handguns because it was easy to reload. It's truth, But all right, but in any event, it doesn't really matter because funny thing about people like Lindsey Graham and others. So 18 years old, you can join the army and get your freaking face blown off, but you're not allowed to have. But for some reason, you are going to be deprived of your inalienable rights. It just doesn't make sense at all. No, I don't. And people say, well, what about drinking? Drinking is not an inalienable right. In Europe, the drinking age is much lower, and I think the drinking age 21 thing is stupid in America. I do. That is a relic of prohibition. That is not grounded in any data. It's a relic of prohibition. And for people who always say, well, why is America then home of all the mass shootings? First of all, we're 50 different states, multiple territories, with very different laws, very different cultures. It's not the same thing to compare us to freaking France. But how come in France you can drink before the age of 21? What is it about our young men or young people in general? America is culturally off its freaking rocker. And we're raising immature, hostile. They claim not to be violent. They're not type A men. They're definitely beta you-know-whats. But their frustrations are manifested because they're not alpha and they don't know how to deal with adversity. They don't even think there should be. If they don't get a safe space and their world cracks, they lash out and they become violent. Whatever it may be. My daddy didn't love me enough. My daddy got hit by a drunk driver who shouldn't have been here. He jumped the border. So now I hate all, Hispanics and I want to get a weapon and, conduct a mass shooting. This is all these crazy different things we've had. Well, maybe if we didn't have the issue of fatherlessness, that wouldn't have been a problem for that specific one. We're also a country that has mass problems when it comes to our culture. It's just true. I can go on. I can spend Laura's over here laughing, but I could go on all of these different examples and point to a change in the 60s that occurred with our culture that created these failed family environments. And then liberals want you to give more power to the government, basically, to deal with the problems that they created by failed families and communities. But the government can never do that. It will never succeed in doing that because that's not its appropriate function, which is why every time there's a mass shooting, you find out the guidance counselor blew it. The sheriff dropped the ball. Everybody knew about this guy. He got caught masturbating in the corner 5 times a day. Weird crap. It's not their role. It's the family's role. Well, it all starts at the home. And the community's role. This is what, and guys, mark my words, you will find out a whole lot about this one as well. They dropped the ball. in Parkland, the FBI and the local people, everybody had tips on this guy, which I'm not going to repeat. They were too busy climbing up the telephone pole outside of Trump Tower to protect your children. And you want to give them more responsibility? You must be out of your damn minds. No, thank you.
It should go back to the main purpose of government.
People are laughing at that, so don't worry. See
No,
people laugh. But look, I'm serious. This is the crazy stuff we always find out about. Like, it didn't tip you off. Like, the guidance counselor found out he mutilated like 8 cats the other day. Like, and they somehow, you know what it is? I think we're going to refer you to a social worker. And we're all going to sit there and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And we're going to call your mommy and find out why daddy ran away from you. My God.
But it's not your fault.
But it's not your fault, honey. Same people who want to defund the police want you to give up your weapons so they can protect you. Don't worry, Mrs. Belvedere is going to arrive and she's going to defuse the situation. People do. I can't honestly deal with some of the ridiculousness I keep hearing.
And then they're
by the way,
interjecting confusion into the children with all this.
Of course, Laura.
Mishmash.
Laura,
children can't figure
what
out
role does
themselves.
a man even have in society anymore? I got called a transphobic guy last night, as you saw,
I know.
because this guy who thinks he's a girl thinks I should be attracted to him because he is a girl. No, you're a man, and I'm not attracted to you, and I'm never going to be. Because people like that, it's like you can't disrupt the social order like this. You can't disrupt the role these men are supposed to play and not expect some twisted implication to come out of this.
It's only inevitable.
I'm so over it. And by the way, while you're worried about everybody's feelings, people are getting shot up. So don't give me this crap. It was safer to live in a Wild West mining town than it is becoming to live in like Broward County, Florida. I'm dead serious. I would rather go live in old school Tombstone, Arizona than have to live in downtown Chicago. Believable. Unbelievable. All right, let's pull this up. Let's go into, because I know we're coming up on the 1 hour here. I just want to show you some of what I was talking about with, and then there's Don. He's going to hang it tight for a second, but that's great. I'm glad he was able to join us. Look, let's start with Chuck Schumer, and then you'll see what I'm talking about here, folks. Okay? Here's Chuck Schumer. Hold on. Here's Chuck Schumer. As you can clearly see, Republicans, independents, and third-party voters have a very unfavorable opinion of Chuck Schumer. They don't like him very much. All right. But his voters do. They're less than 2 in 10 don't like Chuck Schumer. That's not bad. Of his own voter, I'm talking about. All right. Look at Mitch McConnell. Quite a different story. Over a third of Mitch McConnell, or about a third of Mitch McConnell's own party, likes him. That's it. 2/3 can't stand the guy or don't care enough to offer an opinion. There are more Democrats who like Mitch McConnell than there are Republicans, than there are Democrats who don't like Chuck Schumer. There are more Democrats who have a very favorable opinion of Mitch McConnell than there are Republicans who have a very favorable opinion of him. And as you can clearly see, he's not particularly well liked among independents and third-party voters either. Republican leadership has failed. And I will go through here with Nancy Pelosi. Horrible, very unfavorable rating. You clearly see, it's no surprise, Republicans here, but Democrats still like her. Independents can't stand her. Third-party voters can't stand her, but Democrats still like her. What about Kevin McCarthy? Not so much. 8.2% of Republicans have a very favorable opinion of Kevin McCarthy. That's it. That mirrors Democrats at 8%. 15% of Democrats have a somewhat favorable opinion of him. Only 24% of Republicans do. 24%, about a quarter of Republicans can't stand the guy. Hey, very unfavorable. Another 26, another quarter, roughly, somewhat unfavorable. You see what I'm talking about here, folks? The Republican leadership is a failed class. They never build a coalition that can push through a serious agenda with these numbers because they don't have the support of their own voters. So the Democrats, no matter how many landslides Republicans win, and I'm showing you the generic ballot right now, no matter how many landslides they win, they will always be at a disadvantage because their leaders are traitors to them, which is why they don't like them. Their Democratic leaders are not. They don't betray them, at least not like Republicans, not even close. Generally, they keep the agenda moving forward, and they rarely stab their own voters in the back on central issues. Tragic. So there you have it. You know, the Liz Cheney question, that's a really good question. I will say this, and we're going to go to a break here. And I will say this. The only reason you have people like Liz Cheney even close, and you can see her favorability rating is in the tube even more this month. The only reason why that race isn't over is because of what Laura calls the Messiah complex. And I'll wait to drink water. About to go on break. The Messiah complex. These people, same thing with Joe Kent. The other Republican in Joe Kent's race in Washington 3. Said, well, when Donald Trump endorses, I'm going to get out. That's what happened in Wyoming as well. If I don't get the endorsement, I'm going to get out. You didn't get the endorsement. What the hell are you still doing there? You have no chance to overtake Joe Kent in the jungle primary. All you're going to do is make it a race between Joe Kent and Herrera Butler, which, by the way, will be a benefit to Butler. Because Democrats in the general are going to vote for Butler. It's the Messiah complex. Same thing in Wyoming. That endorsement is done. Why the hell are you still there? Go home! That's it. Sandy, I flatly think the best way to hold the media accountable for mass shootings is just keep calling them murderers. I'm serious. They are using social contagions against us. We shall use it against them. They are murderers. You want to talk about the Second Amendment? I don't want to hear any of that, murderer. It's not NRA's fault. It's your fault, murderer. And use the numbers and throw them in their face. Why, after being presented with this conclusive evidence, are you still a mass murderer? Why do you support the murdering of children and adolescent youth? Why are you so fanatical? What happened to you as a child that you're so fanatical that you're willing to sacrifice young children for your ideology? You're crazy, man. Why are you so crazy? Did you not get enough love? Did you stay on mommy's you-know-what too long? What's your major malfunction? That's how we deal with them. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Special thanks to the Bowen Band, as always.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Follow me on Getter at People's Pundit. On Twitter at People's_Pundit. For those of you watching on YouTube, definitely hit the like button. Give us those likes. It always helps with the algorithms, until they skew them and fudge them. And then, of course, subscribe if you don't already. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But very much so, sign up on Rumble in case something they don't like here gets me vaporized and toasted. All right. Which you can do at the People's Pundit Rumble channel. All right. Right there on Rumble. By the way, the new form for the Public Polling Project is up for those who were asking on Wednesday. All right. It is bigdatapoll.com/Public Polling Project, but the links are always in the descriptions below. Speaking of the description below, if you're watching on Rumble, the best way to follow us is peoplespundit.locals.com, which is where we're going to go to the crosstab now. But I'm going to bring in my guest, the great Don Smith, ladies and gentlemen, as always, for the Q&A and to discuss all of this craziness. Don, my friend, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me. Always great to be here. Freewheeling Friday, baby.
Freewheeling Friday, baby. I'd like to go over the abortion stuff with you. I don't know how much time we're going to have on it, but really fascinating stuff. I got to send you all of the links that aren't really public yet. Locals has them, but I just got them up to Locals yesterday. But, conclusively that people have no idea what the hell they're talking about with Roe v. Wade. They oppose overturning Roe v. Wade, then tell you that they oppose abortion in all, earlier than Roe v. Wade protects. Then you ask them again, and they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't. And it's actually pretty close. It's basically even when you explain to them, right? Maybe we can get into that a lot more. But bro, I got to just ask you this. What's their major malfunction, Don? What's their major malfunction? Why do they feel, they'll kill babies for the agenda? They don't care. They'll kill a bunch of adolescents for the agenda. They don't care. This isn't debatable. The FBI has been yelling at them for years over this. Academia. It's like everyone they love, from the FBI to the ivory tower, has been telling them that they are the problem and they are inspiring mass shootings. They don't give a damn. What is wrong with these people? I'm starting to move to the evil category, my friend.
Yeah. And okay. So what are the two biggest wedge issues that have always existed between the left and the right?
Yeah.
That's abortion and gun control. What are we dealing with now? All within a couple of weeks, we're dealing with both of those issues that were not issues, that were not things on the table, that were not things to be debated. But here we are. Coincidence? Okay, maybe not. This is pure evil. It's
evil. It's evil.
And let's also talk about this. What is the major creator of system that we have in America here that is creating all of these things, all this hatred, all this anger, all this public education system? Hello. So, I mean, I don't mean to knock on any of the teachers. This is a bad week. It's a rough week. And I get all that. There are some good teachers out there. There's no doubt about that. But all of these things are being done. We're talking about indoctrination camps that our public schools have become. You need it. Oh, I'm sorry. You need anything? Any questions? Any questions?
Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions?
This is
Don,
this is an anger issue. I'm sorry. This is an anger issue, and this is a hate issue. And what does I heard you talking about the mainstream media earlier. What do they do immediately? As soon as these things happen, what do they do immediately? They come out, they spew hatred, anger. It becomes political. No politician on either side of the aisle killed anybody at that school. The NRA didn't kill anybody at that school. You or I, a political ideology, didn't kill the people at the school. We have a serious mental health issue, and you can't even talk about it.
Don, this is the issue. I mean, the Second Amendment was ratified in 1791. We had no problems for 200 years almost. This is a modern phenomenon that started with the 60s counterculture. They destroyed the institution of the family. They destroyed the autonomous strength of the autonomy and the strength of independent communities. They destroyed the human connection. And this is the sad impact and result of it. And more, they want a bureaucrat or they want some government agency to fix it for them. And there's no way they can. We're going to find out again, because I already know some of it. We're going to find out. It's the same situation in Parkland, the same situation with the Pulse nightclub. It's always the same. They knew they are not equipped to deal with it. They don't, because it's our society that's not equipped to deal with it. We're not allowed to say what is so painfully obvious. And if the COVID pandemic did not show you that we have a major mental health problem in this country, and I don't know what will. I don't know what will. And the truth is, the very foundation of human society has been attacked in this country for the last 60, 70 years. And that has always held together the human connection. And when you do that, it's not just America. It happened in Rome. It happened in Periclean democracy. They cannibalize themselves. Look, Joe Biden wants to badly do something with his approval ratings with people under the age of 30. He wants to forgive student loans. He doesn't care how catastrophic it may be, not only economically and politically, because if you want to continue to push Hispanic working Americans to Republicans, do something stupid like that. Make them pay for people who went to college, even though they never did and their children never did. If you want to continue to push affluent, greedy white people back over to the Republican Party, make them pay for education for someone else when they paid for their own. So knock yourself out, but this is what they do because we're in this phase now of rot, cultural rot. And by the way, nobody will ever talk about what it will do to those people and what it will mean for their own awareness of personal responsibility, right? So then something doesn't happen in their life. It's somebody else's fault, right? If they didn't get something done or they were unable to meet or achieve a goal, it'll always be somebody else's fault. Like, people don't understand how this has implications with everything else in society. And they just don't care. By the way, look, I have it up now. I did it on purpose. 3%. 3% even cited education in that age group. That has nothing to do with why they're falling among these ages. They're falling because of the same reason everybody else is. There's no freaking jobs that can pay for the cost of living crisis we are currently living in, because they don't have enough money to buy food, because they don't have enough money to pay their rent, because they don't have enough money to put gas in the car. Basic failure of the class. The first $10,000 for couples filing jointly who make $350,000 a year. Holy crap, Don. If we don't expect couples who make $350,000 a year to pay back their own student loan, then whatever. Print more money, you stupid idiots. Print more money. It's just crazy. crazy to me, Don.
But everything they do, even on the student loan thing, every single thing they do is to instill fear and hatred and,
That's right.
and loathing and hopelessness. Hopelessness.
Hopelessness.
Look at the climate change stuff, right? You're telling little kids that don't worry about it. That planet's gone in 7 years anyway. So what are they living for? What are their hopes? What are their dreams? You're
Such a good
crushing
point.
them. You're crushing them as little kids. You're pumping the stuff into their heads. You're telling them they're entitled to have their student loans paid off. Do you hear any Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, AOC, any of these people? Do you hear any of them addressing the real issue? Why does a kid have a $300,000 student loan? Is that not insane?
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care what that child has or that adult at that point has a degree in. What degree are you going to pay off $300,000? Is anybody talking about Harvard? You know how many billions and billions of dollars
I remember
they
you did
have in
this.
the bank? Oh my God, it's like $50 billion. Is anybody going to Harvard and saying, hey, can you guys kind of help out with this? Or, hey, maybe 50 billion's enough. They have no problem doing that whether it's the oil company or any other business. They talk about Thanksgiving. Elizabeth Warren was complaining about big turkey money, for crying out loud. How about big Harvard money where she taught school? But everything is about instilling hopelessness
Because
into
she
these
lied
kids.
about her heritage.
Yep.
Yeah, the shooter in Buffalo, Don, did think he was completely into the radical green agenda. You know, that basically the world was coming to an end. He was like Ted Kaczynski, fast forward 50 years. That's what I'm serious. I'm dead serious. He bought all of it. And yeah, I mean, you could think that it's like, incoherent manifesto, and generally I don't want to get into, but all they did was focus on replacement theory, which, by the way, they talked about for years.
Right.
I mean, I hate to say it, but this is incredible. It's like, where did they get this theory from?
It's theirs. Right.
Did you listen to the eulogy in Ted Kennedy's funeral? That was his greatest legacy.
Yeah. I have never been in a conversation, been a conservative my whole life, and I've never had a conversation with any conservative. I have a lot of conversations with conservatives over many years. I've never had a conversation about the great replacement theory. Just like I've never had conversations with people about Q or the Proud Boys, or these are things that this is what they're doing. They're instilling fear, hatred, and hopelessness into the minds of these youth. And they don't care.
They don't care. That's what pisses me off. They know what I went over before is not a secret. It hasn't been a secret for like a decade over. And they just simply don't give a damn because it helps them. It advances their political ideology and it advances their power. It helps them maintain power. And so they don't care about my kids. They don't care about your kids. They don't care about Andrew's kids who lost in Parkland. They don't care about any of them. They don't care about his daughter. They don't care about anybody except for themselves. And that hopelessness is a big damn deal because what do all of these kids have in common? A great feeling of despair and hopelessness. They all have this in common. And by the way, somehow, it's like this, he gets attacked for it all the time. Tucker talks about the impact of young men, being ostracized by society, their traditional role. Did you think nothing was going to come of this? Did you really think nothing was going to come of this? As if there would be no consequences. To me,
Well, no, I heard you mention earlier, and this is the point. This is a great point, and this is what we need to be talking about. Every single one of these, every single one, has had issues. Everybody knew they had issues, and it's the same thing. Every time this happens, people go, "Well, we didn't think it could happen here." Why? Why didn't you think it could happen there? Because it's such a great. Okay, great. It's time that we get over it can't happen here, because yes, it can. It can happen anywhere. I don't care if you're the greatest city in the world, in the history of the world. It can happen there. So let's start protecting these kids. But you can't, because the first pushback you get is, we shouldn't have to have these schools be all. Okay, granted, let's agree on that. We shouldn't have to, but we do. Yeah. All of these kids have issues. And where are we going right now? What's the trajectory of this country right now when it comes to the legal system? The trajectory is releasing people from prisons. The trajectory is no cash bail. The trajectory is get back out on the street as quick as you possibly can.
Yeah.
This is where we're
Yeah.
going. And we're early in this journey. Everybody listen to this. We are early in this journey of
sadly.
that process. You just wait. You wait. You won't even be allowed to go talk to one of these disturbed young kids anymore because it'll be somehow make them feel bad, or they already feel bad. They already feel hate, despair. They already feel it. Help these kids, but make sure that the parents have some feeling of safety. That's what people want. They want safety for their kids. Not one single person that I know wants any of these things to happen. So quit throwing crap like that out there. You want
It's
these
hard.
kids
It's just
to- you
horrible.
want these. You got blood on your hands. The NRA didn't shoot anybody. The politicians didn't shoot
Don,
anybody.
the NRA is the weakest it's been forever right now. They've essentially been neutered. Let's get real here. They still have members, but their impact and control over the Republican Party or any party is completely dwindled, because once upon a time, Democrats used to actually believe in the Second Amendment, or at least they claim to. Bernie Sanders once had an A rating with the NRA. He was a gun supporter. He only went total radical Bernie on guns after 2016, which is why he lost his coalition, by the way. And Mark Charles said, and he's dead on, right? We have to call it what it is, the systemic destruction of the family. Mark, everything can really be traced back to this core unit in society that must be strengthened, maintained, and promoted, which is the family. It is the building block of society. And the minute you attacked it, which is what the Great Society does, somehow, Don, the Black family survived slavery. The Black family survived the Civil War. The Black family survived Reconstruction. It survived the Gilded Era. It survived the First World War, the Second World War, the Korean War. What it could not survive was the Great Society, the welfare state. You've read Our Virtuous Republic, and for people who have, I went back into labor force participation history with the Black family, and it was just really had nothing to do with race. It's about anytime government gets in the way and plays a role that the society must play, there's implications, and government will grow and your freedoms will dwindle. I mean, it's a mathematical equation. They had a higher labor force participation rate than whites throughout every period until the Great Society. And then their participation rate lagged every other race from then on out, because it was targeting them. It did it on purpose. It targeted them. It was specifically designed to destroy the Black family unit. I mean, you call it what you want, but I mean, people at the time argued that it would do that, and they were relegated to the, to voices of fringe voices, right? Well, who was right now and who wasn't? It's sad, Don, because they just don't care. This is the worst part of it. They just don't care, no matter what you say. That Washington Post editor, where is this absolute fool? I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, did this guy really claim that the AR-15 was designed for Nazis? Armor Light is what AR stands for. They have different versions of the Armor Light AR-15 in other companies, but oh my God, Armor Light wasn't even a company until 1954. What the hell is this guy talking about? What on earth is he talking about? Mark Fisher, at the senior editor at the Washington Post. Wow. And where's their fact checker? You don't fact check themselves? They don't fact check themselves, Glenn? Where are you, Glenn? You phony. You're another one. This is just nuts. I mean, I did not find it to be a problem. Like I started talking about how it was for me in middle school and high school. They knew we had a gun problem on the street. By the way, one of the bluest states in the union. Most strictest gun control laws you can get. Yet everyone 13 and above, Don, carried heat. It's just amazing. They knew they had a gun problem. Metal detectors, one entrance, police, and a private security. guard. It worked, my friend. It worked. Nobody was dumb enough to try to bring in a weapon, with all of that. They just didn't do it.
But we've got to look at this too, because we definitely have to do something about these schools. Think of all the money that we just spent because of COVID-19 and put in new ventilation systems, whether they need it or not, even if who knows if they even really use that money for that, but whatever. That's a whole nother issue. All this money we just spent securing our schools against the COVID-19 that wasn't killing any kids.
Yeah.
We sent $40 billion to the Ukraine. How about we use that and we fortify our schools? We do something about this. But let me make this point, because Texas is one of the best at this, at securing their schools. And I know that sounds crazy after what just happened, but let me make my point here. When our son went to school in Houston, there was one entrance. There was an armed security guard at that door. Those doors were locked. I don't care who you were, parents. We couldn't get in there unless somebody opened the door for us and let us in. There was one way in, one way out. Here in Uvalde, same thing. So it was supposed to be somebody on watch, a guard there, but there wasn't, from what we're being told. But all the doors are supposed to be locked. They left the back door open. Maybe they were comfortable and they just went, well, it's a lot easier. And we hate to have to ring the bell to get somebody to come open the door or whatever. The point is this: no matter what we do, and this is for all the people out there that say just pass this law or that law or this law, the super magic law that's going to fix everything. We're human beings. That door was left unlocked. Apparently, this person knew the door was unlocked because they went straight to it and went in. It was like they were going around the thing trying to get into all the other doors. So they must have known that door was just always left unlocked. We're human beings. No matter what procedures, no matter what we do to put these things in place, you have to stay vigilant on them because we let our guards down.
Infallible. We're flawed, infallible creatures. We are. I mean, that's a reality, right. Yep. Just to get to, as we go over this, I'll hit the questions. Will we hit 50% strongly disapproval ratings for Biden soon? Noticed more and more anger towards Biden in your polling, our polling. It's up from strongly disapprove is up from 42.5 to 46.5 in a month and a half. There it is right there. Absolutely. He's correct. America First is correct. I think honestly, Don, at this point, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. And then ironically, the Ipsos poll had basically mirrored us. They have them at 60, basically almost 60% disapproval. We have them at 60.5. And they have 1 point lower than us on approval. And we're at 37. What I'm noticing, this is a great question, America First B. And actually, I said he, but I'm not sure. It's a great question, because I think this is the product of what Don and Don, I've been saying this since we started this. He had no base. He has no base. And in the beginning, what he had was a lot of soft support and a lot of people who had, kind of like, no opinion that would help his spread. Now his spread, is looking like more like a Trump or Obama spread, where everyone is having an opinion about him. Undecided with Joe Biden is only 2% this month. That's right around Trump territory and Obama territory. It's like you either loved them or you hated them. The problem, I think the real potential here for Biden to fall on even more, just to collapse, is that nobody really ever loved him. Unlike Barack Obama, there were people who loved him, and no matter what happened, they were always going to love him. With Donald Trump, I don't think we can compare the media polls with Trump's approval to media polls with Biden, because clearly, given the results in 2016 and 2020, they never knew how to poll the Trump supporter, ever. So I don't think Trump was ever, I personally don't believe Donald Trump ever fell into the 30s. I don't. I think that he had a base that was around 42%, and there was no getting him below that. And I think they're just garbage polling, and they didn't know what they were doing. Clearly, ABC News, Biden plus 17. All right. AP, Biden plus 14, YouGov, Biden plus 11. I mean, very clear. They did not know how to poll the Trump voter. And what do you think, Don? Because if you look at his approval this month with Democrats, okay, 5.8 strongly disapproved, 11.1 somewhat disapproved. So we're now up to like 17% of Democrats who disapprove of the job that Joe Biden is doing. Look at independents. They're at a majority now. And they were I remember when they were like at 40, and I was like, oh, I made a big deal of it back then. I was like, guys, He's majority disapprove with independence, but look at strongly disapprove. And then this idiot goes out and just demonizes half the country. This is what he does. So it's like, is he going to really rally anybody's support back to him when all he does is blame white supremacy or blame the NRA or blame this person, that person? He's the worst leader, dude, ever.
This is what they've become. And this is the point I'm making. It's happening in our school systems. It's happening on the mainstream media, but it starts at the top. This entire party. When is the last time the Democrats ran a presidential campaign that was on their values, that was on what they would do, on how they would make people's lives better? When was the last time that they ran that kind of a campaign? Hillary Clinton hate Donald Trump. So if you hate Donald Trump, vote for me. They didn't like her either. She knew that. Vote for me because you hate him. What did Joe Biden run
Trump's hate. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And who are the haters? Joe Biden, his entire campaign was anger, fear, and desperation. It'll be the dark winter if you don't elect me. And what did it turn out to be? Oh, it's the dark winter anyway, right? So his base is only made up of people that hate somebody. I hate this guy, so I better vote for him.
Yeah.
I like him
by
either,
the way, this is where we're at on COVID. I don't know where some of these people coming up with even or even plus on COVID. There is just no I don't know if there's anything going back to it. It is his best issue. He's at 44.1% approve, but he's still at 53% disapprove. So, it's 52.6 or 52.6 disapprove. I just don't. There are too many people who think that he just didn't come through with his promises. He failed. They're not going to say they approve of him again. And then there's all the stuff that happened with, his VAT mandates. People hated that. I guess, by the way, I was right about that. Remember when the polls showed that people actually supported mandates? That's crazy. You go down the line, the economy and jobs, just a total disaster, 35.3% on the economy. It's just garbage. Look, by the way, before we move on, I just want to show the abortion designation this month. We had pro-choice +1. I think last month it's pro-choice +2. That's it. That's what we got. And by the way, it may have been pro-life +1 had it not been for the news about Roe v. Wade. Look at how many people, when we ask about, let's look at first trimester stuff. After a heartbeat has been detected, even with Roe v. Wade, it's very close to last month. Last did it. A couple of months ago. 9% oppose it and 32% support it. That's another crosstab I got to bring up. But it actually, even though the Roe v. Wade news hit, it got worse on specific proposals for pro-choice this month. After doctors determine that a baby can feel pain, 60.6% oppose, 22.1% support. And you might notice, by the way, guys, that men are always more supportive of abortion during these times than women. Don, it's supposed to be the angry woman who's going to come out and vote. It's these deadbeat dads who support it more. It's clear, very clear. Look, 15% of women, 18% of men during the final 3 months of a pregnancy. And now we're up from a 67% supermajority. We're now up to 70.7 who oppose late-term abortion. And when we asked people first about Roe v. Wade, it was like 50-35 who said, no, I oppose it being overturned. Then we broke the ice to them. Roe v. Wade, protects abortion during these trimesters. You just said you opposed abortion in these trimesters. Now, knowing this, do you support or oppose Roe v. Wade? And it was like went to damn near even, Don, because people just didn't know what Roe v. Wade did. They have no idea. All they think is that crap you were just talking about with the media and the Democrats, and now they've been campaigning for years. The coat hanger. The coat hanger. We're going to go back to the back alley with the coat hanger day. It's disgusting, man. Mm-hmm. Totally disgusting, And as if there's no change in, as if there was never any change in contraceptives over the years since Roe, since there was no change in like a Plan B, right? Since condoms haven't gotten better or something, you know what I mean? They act like we're like stationary in certain periods of history. And for each issue, we're stuck in a stationary period that's most beneficial to them. Like, so if we were to discuss the 17th Amendment, bro, we'd go back to the Gilded Era. You know, I'm serious. They would frame it in that way, right? I mean, any way that best fits their narrative. They don't want to talk about how the freaking Second Amendment was ratified in 1791. They don't. They want to be stuck in the modern era with our sick mass mental health disorders that we are living under. And they don't want to, but we're not allowed to discuss the difference and why, right? Because we got to be stationary in their focal point in history. And they can move it whenever they want, because that's what progressive really means. It means the needs of the state progress, and you get to just change whatever values you claim to have as the needs change. I mean, it's crazy. It doesn't make much sense. I did want to go over this with you because somebody had asked a question about a Pew poll and support. Why do younger people support Palestine more? You're old like me, bro. And you remember before there was an Iron Dome, right? These kids don't. Right? Schools were not universally pro-Palestine. When I went to college, you had one professor who was pro-Palestine. And when I was going back for international relations, I had maybe two. And that was it. Everyone else was like, well, if you were little Israel and you were encircled, you'd be aggressive too. Because that's what real is all about. You know, realism. And they were all realists. You know, they were like John Mearsheimer and Ken Waltz realists, like the difference. Here we can, you know, clearly see difference in Greatest Enemy. But what do you think about that? So the short answer is yes, our polling does back up that young people are more pro-Palestine. And I think a big deal of that is that, you know, you talk to somebody like Don and I, we remember before there was an Iron Dome, and almost every day in the 90s, there was a cafe that was blown up, a bus that was blown up. I mean, they just were bodies of Israeli citizens all over the place. So you were like, these people are terrorists. I mean, they're using terror. They're not using legitimate statecraft to try to get their way. Or they were monsters before the Iron Dome. I mean, that's it. If the Iron Dome wasn't there, we'd go right back to it, Don. Don't you think? I mean, honestly, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Just look at the media. Okay. And what I said earlier about the schools and what they're doing in the schools, these BDS groups that are all over the country on almost every single major, probably on every major campus by now. Yeah. They're not started because a bunch of students got together and went, no, they're started by activist professors. Let me say that again. They're started by activist professors. That's what our teachers have become. Where do you think, just look at the stats. Look, where do you think all the Weather Underground people are today? All the leaders of that group. That's right. They're professors, because they understood a long time ago that you have to get to these kids younger, right? You've got to instill your values and your beliefs into these kids, because they're our kids. Melissa Harris Perry, they belong to the community.
That's right.
How's that working out, everybody? How's that working out? All you people who think the kids belong to the community. The kids belong to the parents. Or you're saying their property. I'm saying they belong to the parents. The parents are responsible for these kids. When they belong to the community, who's responsible? Who do you hold responsible? How do you hold the community responsible?
Go ahead, Laura.
Well, I just want to say, when they start paying all the medical bills for my children, and they start paying all the food bills for my children, and when they sit there and babysit my children.
But they do for some, don't they? The point is, right?
Yeah, but not like what I'm talking about. I'm talking about real parenting.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Teach my children how to walk, teach them how to talk, teach them how to feed themselves. Oh, that's right. They're creating robots to do that now.
But Laura, you know as well as I do, you know better than any of us, because you did it. You fed many of those kids. Their parents didn't feed them. You fed those children, Laura.
What you see when like, oh man, makes me want to cry. So like
She fed the children of the school systems. I
I
mean, there
would
were
see some of
lots
these
of
kids
kids.
on Friday leave looking like, you know, like those cartoons where they give you those sparkly little eyes, and it's heartbreaking. And then watch them come back Monday 5 to 10 pounds later because they had no food. So
Yeah,
here
I
I
mean,
am. I'm like, you want another serving of that? Miss Laura will
Laura,
buy
do
it
you
for you.
remember
Don't
that
worry.
cute little girl during the turkey dinner that you did? Do you remember that cute little girl who was like, she was so beautiful, but she was like, I wish you were my daddy. Do you remember that? I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm going to go outside and kill myself now. Like that broke my
Really?
heart. Do you remember we
Yes.
did a turkey, we did a
But
Thanksgiving dinner, or was that Christmas? One or the other, but it was
it
turkey
was the
because it was
Thanksgiving
turkey.
feast.
It was, and Laura did amazing. I mean, way, way above and beyond.
All right.
Um,
Disclaimer: I do what I wasn't supposed to. All right. So, but I don't work there anymore, so I could say what I did. So I cook as if I was cooking a real Thanksgiving dinner at home. I season things the way I would season it at home.
oh my
So,
God.
you know, I mean,
Mm, 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 mm.
granted, I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning cooking these things and then
I
letting them
remember.
rest, you know, and slicing them and all that fun
It's one
jazz. But
turkey after the other in and out of the oven. I remember that. I did it with you. Or I
yeah,
tried to help.
no,
You
you
know, it was a
can.
lot of work.
Yes.
But you probably fed 800 children,
I actually
maybe more.
I fed 950 children, and then I had a total of 10, 12. It was 1250 altogether. So I had like 300 and change adults that
And
came.
say, I was just going to say, and sadly, of course, parents are welcome, you know, but
Mhm.
you know damn well how many people took advantage, Laura, bringing
Oh, I know.
brothers and cousins and you know, trying to stash turkey into bags and bring it. I mean, it's disgraceful. Disgraceful, Don. And then when we were
But I
doing
fed them
something with the
all.
church, I remember when we were doing something with the church. The church, they didn't want to say it, but they were using the kids to get onto the line, and they were taking a kid from each. Like, let's say the family had 3 kids, Don. Okay,
Mhm.
they would take the mother, then the father, then have an uncle go in or an aunt go in. And they were taking like all of that we made for a specific family. This is what you get for Thanksgiving dinner. You get stuffing, you get corn, you get yams, and whatever it may be.
All
And
the
there was
fixings.
enough of it. All the, yeah. And these people were coming back, you know, damn well it's the same house. And they're trying to get like 3 family dinners. Problems we have. All right. That is why we have the problems we have. Not because families, sadly, are doing their job, because
And
they
that makes
destroy the unit.
And that makes the point that I'm making. You can't
Yeah.
hold people if the kids belong to the community. You can't hold anybody accountable. If parents aren't feeding their children when they're at home, what happened to, hey, let's go check up on them, and not necessarily to round them up and throw them in prison or anything like.
No.
Find
Yeah.
out what's going on and can we help? Are there programs that can help? That's why we have the safety net programs. But you can't even address any of these issues anymore. You have to pretend that they don't exist and they belong to the community, so we don't want the community to look bad. So hey, listen. Let's start taking care of these kids. Let's make sure they're being taken care of by the parents. All those things used to be things that happened, and they just don't anymore. We just pretend like it's not a problem. Like you said earlier, every one of these kids was troubled. Every one of these kids had some interaction with the police
Everyone.
or with every single one. When are we going to say that they don't belong to the community, that there is parental responsibility here? And start solving these issues, but also harden our schools. When are we going to do that? I know we shouldn't have to, but obviously we do. So let's
Until
quit talking about
yes.
Let's quit talking about this fantasy world and let's deal with reality.
Oh, amen, brother. Because maybe one day we'll heal enough, we'll get strong enough as family units and again autonomous communities that we'll be able to go back to that. But right now we're weak. We have failed, and we need safeguards. All right, and we shouldn't. By the way, number one, we shouldn't take away people's rights to address this problem, because number one, it won't do a damn thing. It's not going to fix the problem. But number two, other people shouldn't have to pay for the failures of others. And think about what I was saying before. Not only were those families perfectly willing to shirk their responsibility and put feeding their children on Laura's shoulders. Not only were they perfectly happy doing that, they were exploiting it.
They participated.
They participated. Anyway, somebody had said, maybe I should have added ourselves or the U.S. government to this question. And it's kind of like laid as a tracker to do because this is now the second one for the public polling project. It's amazing. It's been over a year already. But it has. And we again asked about the biggest threat to the United States. Let me pull it up here first in a crosstab. All right. But this way, because it's a little bit hard to see any other way. But China rose from 42.2 to 42.8, which was interesting. Russia rose from about 22 to 31.6. North Korea was about the same, 10.2. Iran came in at 2.8. None of them came in at 3.1. Other nations came in at 2.3 and 7.1. By the way, amazingly, it's amazing how many people said Israel out of that other. Unsure, no opinion was 7.1%. I have a graph here, though, to show you by party, Don. Check this out. Here's by party. You can see last year that there was an increase basically across the board for people who said Russia. I mean, it was across the board, Don. Whether it was Republican, whether it was Democrat, whether it was independent. Independents who chose Russia, 27.2% of independents. That was up from like, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I could pull it up. But I want to say it was basically maybe 15%, something like that. I put it on Twitter for people who want to see. And then also locals, it's on there from in the archives. But you know, you can see the Mark Levin impact here. It was less than 10% of Republicans last year who said that Russia was the greatest enemy. Now the 20.7 of Republicans said so. Democrats are now basically at half. They were in the 30s last year. Although it was always true that more Democrats chose Russia than any other nation. So 24.4% of Democrats chose China is about the same as last year. So it was always more for Russia among Democrats. Independents and Republicans clearly see, and then third-party voters clearly see China as the number one threat or the greatest enemy to the U.S. But what do you make of this, Don? This movement here? Like I said, sometimes news really can impact opinion. You know, it's the bottom line.
I look at first thing that pops right off at me is the Democrats on the Russia, right? So orange man bad. That's what that is.
It's crazy.
It's got nothing to do with reality. Is Russia really more capable? Are they really messing with us? Are they really, unless you believe the Russia collusion hoax, you're probably going to pick China. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I don't think this is even a question anymore. There was a time when certainly it would have been Russia. It would have been, of course, the Soviet Union then, but this is what happens. This is what they do. Look at the fear, the hatred, and the despair put onto the left by the media, by the politicians over the Russia collusion. That Donald Trump is a puppet of Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin would not have even messed with Donald Trump. Let's be perfectly clear here. There was no puppet anything, right? The guy had respect for Donald Trump, and he also had respect and fear. He feared that this guy would not take, if he would have done the Ukraine thing. Why do you think he waited? Why do you think he waited on Ukraine? The Ukraine thing didn't just happen. But this is what happens. This is how they manipulate people. It's not even close. I mean, it is China. China wants world domination, which the Soviet Union used to want that as well. But China wants it for China, not for a collection of peoples, and it's for China. So, I mean, this is ridiculous. It just shows you exactly what the media does to people, how they jack people up, and they're still jacked up today over the 2016 election, for crying out loud.
Yeah, let me give, because I did find it. Let me give a little bit of an idea. So China was 42.2 last year. It moved up a little bit. Russia was 22.2. Last year, 36.4% of Democrats chose Russia. 24.3% chose China. So, I got to be honest, with economic confidence, with everything, the direction of the country, still a majority of Democrats say right track, even though the right track, wrong track is currently negative 50, basically. They're living in an alternate reality, Don. 49% this year. It's up from 36.4. Republicans, 63.7% last year chose China. This year, 60.1. 8.7 chose and 20.7. So it's a shenanigans. Lindsey Graham, Republican, that did that. North Korea, 18.1% of Democrats chose North Korea. So this year you can see it's down to 12.4. The rest of them are pretty similar. Both 12.6% of Republicans and 12.8% of Democrats had chosen North Korea. Yet this year, that either went to China or Russia. So again, it just shows you, man, they're like totally living in a different world. I mean, in the right, let me show you the right track, wrong track before I go to UFOs here. Here's the right track, wrong track. Let me pull this up. There it is. Let me pull up Democrats and, let me pull up all party, and I'll do detail too so we can see third party. Look at this, man. 50.8% of Democrats say we're headed on the right track. That compares to less than 15% of independents, less than 7% of third-party voters, and less than 6% of Republican voters. I mean, they are literally living in a different place, man. In current business conditions, positive view, Democrats, 35%. Meanwhile, only 9 for Republicans, less than 14 for independents, and 4% for something else. And it's economic confidence like this across the board. Here's the inflation one, the one related to family income, 39%. Positive for Democrats. That's tied with neutral. 12%, that compares to 12 for Republican, 16 for independent, and 12 for someone else. So it's like everybody else is on the same page, like roughly in the same ballpark. They are not living or basing their views on reality, on what's real. It's all their views. And I'm not saying, look, to the average Democratic voter, I'm not attacking you here. I'm simply saying you're in a party right now that is living in an alternate reality. You are. I mean, that's it. That's what these numbers show. And sadly, Don, when consumer confidence, small business confidence, everything, home builder confidence, booming. Every index hit an all-time high. And yet Democrats were often 40-point differences between everyone else, as if the economy was not booming under Donald Trump. I mean, it's at some point, something's got to give, Don. Like, you can't just live in the reality that you want to live in. Otherwise, it leads to crazy-ass things like boys not knowing their role in society. And I'm telling you, yesterday I had you would have loved it. I had a biological male who I now identifies as a female calling me transphobic because I'm not attracted to men who think they're women.
Because you're supposed to participate. We started out with this. It was like,
well, that's the next step, though, isn't it, Don? Like,
you have
so
to
what does
participate.
transphobia mean? So I have to change my sexual preferences and attraction. This is too much for me, Don. I'm sorry. I think this is too much for the vast majority of people in this country. I'm sorry.
About 8 years ago,
not going down this road, bro.
I wrote an article, and it was called "The Normalization of Deviant Behavior." It was on, I think, Bradley.
I remember that.
Sons of Liberty.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was the story where the mother went up to the front desk at one of those Planet Fitness, whatever, goes up to the front desk because there's a grown adult man naked in the locker room, in the girls' locker room, with her, I want to say it was like an 8-year-old daughter, and the 8-year-old daughter, it might have been a little older, it doesn't matter, comes out and says, there's a naked man in here, standing here staring at me, watching me undress. The mother goes up to the counter. Do you know what Planet Fitness did? Because they're a no judgment zone. They revoked her membership. They threw her out. Oh my
God.
But this was 8 years ago. Look where we are today. That mother might go to prison. I don't know. This isn't about you accepting any alternative
No.
lifestyles, which we do. You and I've talked about. So we don't care. Do
I know,
your
yeah,
thing.
teach his own. Do your thing, man.
Don't
Yeah.
make me participate. Don't make me participate. I don't have to be sexually attracted to you because you believe you're this alternative thing. I don't have to participate in that. I refuse to participate. I will not participate. So
I will not
do your thing.
participate.
I will not be participating. I will never think that Bruce Jenner looks stunning in a dress and high heels. Remember all those articles when we talked about those things?
Oh yeah.
I will never believe that Bruce Jenner looked stunning. Bruce Jenner looked like Bruce Jenner with a wig, a dress, and high heels. I'm sorry. That's my reality. It doesn't make me a bad person.
Yes,
Bruce can do whatever Bruce wants to do. Good for you, Bruce. Olympic champion.
That's right.
Good for you. But I will not participate.
That's where I'm at too. Like I draw the line. I don't care what you want to do. I don't care what you think you are, but I draw the line when you try to force me to participate in that. I know what I am. I've known since I was like 8. You know what I mean? Or whatever. But pretty early. And I'm not going to change that for you or any social pressure. That to me is a bridge too far, Don. It's a bridge too far. Now you're trying to thrust your disorder on me.
Yep. To make you feel better. So
to make you feel better about yourself. Right. Exactly. No, thank you.
Right.
All right. Let's get into speaking of things that are totally well, no, actually, I don't want to even put these two in the same category.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I hate to interrupt, but I saw a comment in here, and it was one of the things that surprised me about the greatest threats as well. And I thought it was a great comment question. Was Iran,
hit it up.
Was Iran? I was really surprised that Iran was not seen as a bigger threat. I would think it's the number one state sponsor of terrorism. That is a fact, just truth. They are causing chaos all around the world. The Saudi Arabia, the Aramco, all that stuff. They're bad actors. Developing nuclear weapons with our assistance. We're giving them a thing to say, here, go ahead. We won't check on you. Do whatever you want to do. So I was really surprised to see that was as low as it was. Just wanted to make that
and
comment.
you can see their independents actually are more so than others at this point, which goes to show you that, despite the fake media polls, Donald Trump had more people on his side than not when it came to getting out of the Iran deal. All right, which was always going to be a hard case for Democrats to make. And yet, by the way, that's something else because the media, Don, is not talking about this at all. There were many, many episodes where you and I came on and said, by the way, Joe Biden's giving away the farm right now. But nobody ever heard about it. And when it came to the Iran deal, when he was renegotiating it 6 months ago, it's because the world was on fire and we were talking about other things, but the media wasn't like talking about it at all. And here we are. By the way, Joe Biden said that Donald Trump was going to start World War III by killing Qasem Soleimani. That did not happen. Donald Trump took out one of the most dangerous men in the world. And guess what? Nothing happened. So it was another Chicken Little, the sky is falling, BS moment. It's just unbelievable.
And let's not forget, while Donald Trump was president, those 4 years, John Kerry was in constant communication with the mullahs.
Yes.
He was meeting them in Geneva, Switzerland on a regular basis. And what was he telling them? Don't worry.
And Mahmoud.
Just ride this out. And we're going to have another president. And he was negotiating a deal on behalf of the United States during the Donald Trump presidency.
Yeah, that's called sedition.
Yeah.
That's called sedition. Yeah. That's number one. That's called sedition. And he was also meeting with Mahmoud Abbas and his right-hand man in London, telling his right-hand man, tell Abbas not to make that deal because Donald Trump was this close to a deal, a peace treaty, in a Israeli-Palestine peace treaty. This close, had a plan that probably, honestly, was the most acceptable plan since the Bush administration, because the Clinton administration really never did have any. That was a lot of show, what's his name with the Palestinian leader at the time? It's killing me. Was never going to make that deal. His political power was based on Israeli hatred. He never would have come to that. But at this point, you had the Abbas trying to keep at least somewhat a wing of the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Authority, whatever, trying to keep them at bay because they were basically the political wing of Hamas. And if Donald Trump was reelected, I do believe we would have had two deals that we'll never get now, which is one, we would have had a Middle East peace deal. We would have. And two, we would have had a North Korea ICBM nuclear deal with Kim Jong-un. And that is, honestly, Don, one of the biggest travesties, because you can see here, some people do still see North Korea. They do see that threat. That's why Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un was widely popular among people. They wanted him to do that and make some progress. And it's just a shame now. Now we see just last week we weren't talking about, because they're using everything to hide what's going on. He was just lobbing ICBMs over Japan again last week, and nobody talked about that at all. And it's tragic, man. I mean, they were talking about World War III. Trump was going to kill everybody, to the point where the voters in Minnesota and other places around the country, when we asked, really did believe that Donald Trump was the warmonger. And that was totally, of course, it's influential on people's votes. They know the Rust Belt is anti-war. They know it is.
How many people
New Hampshire?
How many people watching right now even know that we just sent troops back into Somalia?
Somalia.
Yeah.
And there are more going back to Ukraine.
Because we need troops in Somalia. We need to get involved in that.
He wants to send ground forces back to Ukraine too.
But you know why he did it too. I know why he did that. He did it because Donald Trump pulled him out. That's
right. Well, it's just to be the anti-Trump.
Yep. Because
there's no rhyme or reason other than I want to do what Donald Trump. I want to undo what Donald Trump did. That's why we're in the energy crisis we're in right now. I mean, it made no freaking sense, Don. That's why he didn't stick to Trump's plan on Afghanistan, and it led to the calamitous result that it did.
Yep.
It's fanatical.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I'm surprised Donald Trump wanted to get a lot of this stuff out we're going to go over now. And I'm surprised that Congress and others did hold hearings on it, because I'm surprised they didn't politicize this issue even more, even though Harry Reid is responsible for the news breaking the way. And also, what's his name from Alaska who died? He was defeated during Sullivan has his seat now, but I'm forgetting. Ted Stevens. Senator Ted Stevens. Him and Harry Reid are responsible for the UAP program. And once a year, we ask about UFOs like Gallup. And ironically, I love that image, though. Isn't that cool? Awesome. I've been dying to click that image. Laura, I hear Laura laughing. I hear Tom laughing. All right, so let's take a look, because there are some interesting things that we found this year, Don, even though, ironically, the percentage of people who said that they have had a sighting and the percentage of people who said, I haven't, but I know someone who has, and I do believe them kind of thing, that only rose by 1 and 2 points, respectively. So basically largely unchanged. Yet other beliefs like this one made some serious and he asked, which comes closer to your views on UFO sightings? At least some can be attributed to extraterrestrial intelligence visiting Earth, or all can be explained by human activity on Earth or natural phenomena. It's important to remember, until last year, anytime we had asked this before, and we didn't ask every year in some of the polls we did, but we did when it was something we thought we wanted to ask about. Like in April 2018, it was only 31% who said that at least some sightings can be attributed to extraterrestrial intelligence visiting the Earth. Last year was the first time that more people said that than natural phenomena, and it was 38.5%. So it rose again this year from 38.5 to 42.6. Last year, still kind of close. 34% said natural phenomena. This year, it's only 27.3. It's not really even that close. There are more people who say they're unsure, which accounts for maybe some of those people. But that's, if you're a ufologist, or you're someone who truly believes in this and has been working on disclosure, these are really good results to you. Because what this is telling you is, A, more people agree with you, and B, people who didn't before are now unsure and are willing to hear it out. So this is a big deal. Ironically, Don, this happened regardless of the fact that this year people are holding more conservative views and more people identified as Republican than Democrat. What happened, Don? I thought that evangelicals and conservatives were closed-minded and backward, and that's the stigma, right, bro? That's the stigma. That is not true. There is like no discernible difference in a few of these things outside of more Republicans being unsure than Democrats. You can clearly see, there's about a 3-point difference between, 6-point difference between Republicans. They believe more than independents and third-party voters. Democrat voters only, however, believe a few points more than Republicans. Everybody's pretty much in the same boat. There's like no big difference. You know where it changes? You know where it matters? Education. If you're a post-grad rich Democrat, you don't believe in this. If you're an evangelical versus a regular Christian, there's almost no difference. If you're a Catholic versus a Christian, there's almost no difference. It's just, I don't mean Catholics aren't Christian. Let me just back up. It's just that we say Protestant, other Christian, and then we say Catholic, separate. All right. So amazingly, the only other group that was less believable were educated Jewish voters. They did not believe in this. So again, it really just doesn't hold with the media narrative in general surrounding conservatives. It doesn't, man. It does not. And this is a good trend for people. Again, despite the fact, I'm getting a spam phone call right now, despite the fact that 18.8% this year said that they had personally seen a UFO. Again, everyone's pretty close here. Another 21.2 said no, but I know someone who sincerely believes they've witnessed a UFO. Again, that's up about 2 points. This one's up about 1. No real big change, right? I've never witnessed a UFO, and neither has anyone I know, is now below 60 this year. And that's because of the 3-point shift slightly. But, what's amazing to me is more people believe in extraterrestrial visitation, even though not many more people witness it themselves. What do you make of that, Don? Because a lot of people really didn't make hay over the public hearings. Like, Tucker covers that stuff, but it doesn't really get... At first, I'm like, well, it could just have been the media. But I don't know, man. What do you think?
I think to me, really, one of the most interesting parts of this whole thing is it's not been politicized. Everything is politicized. So then there's a gain for this. And so if you're on this side, you have to believe this. This is one of the issues is I wouldn't even know how you could politicize it. I suppose they could. They can figure out how to do anything. So I'm curious about that, because I wonder if this is maybe one of the most honest polls, right? You always say numbers don't lie, people lie. And this is one of those things where people are honest, because there is no position to defend, no political ideology or anything is really involved in this. But it's always been a fascinating subject. I'm also kind of interested in the fact that it used to be, I remember growing up, this was maybe like a sexier issue. There was a lot of movies and all these kind of things, and everybody was, oh my God, the aliens and the UFOs are coming. And it's a lot less sexy today. It's more of seems like more of a fact-based discussion, like what was this? And in this counter, this was this. And we talk about it, I think, a lot differently today than I remember, at least when I was growing up. And there was a lot more talk about it. But I also wonder too, who believes? So, I mean, they're doing these hearings and all these things now. You've done polling here recently on government agencies, right? Especially the 3-letter agencies and the trust in them. So I wonder how many people actually believe what's being presented in these hearings and what's being told to them by the FBI and all those kind of things. So I'm curious about that.
That's a great question. So this is the second to last one that this maybe helps explain why more people did say they believe in extraterrestrial visitation this year. Regardless of your views on sightings, do you believe intelligent life form exists elsewhere in the universe? Just about everybody in the 55 to 65% range by party believes that to be the case. Overall, 62.4% believe that to be the case. That is up this year, that is up from 58.6 last year. But here's a big gain that is to do with what you were talking about, which is, do you believe the U.S. government, and Republicans are real skeptical of the government here, do you believe the U.S. government is more about UFOs than it claims? That has risen to 69.2%, up from 62 flat last year. Republicans at 73% say yes. 68% of Democrats say yes. 67% of independents say yes. 61% of third-party voters say yes. So I think maybe that has something to do with it. Greater belief that life exists in the universe and greater belief that the government's lying. And I think that may be what's driving it. And interestingly, like you said, to me, one of the most important things, it's not politicized. So for once, a rare question where we have belief across the board, just rare question. I do, yeah. I did 3 hours of video on it this week, but before we go, I do want to ask you your thoughts on this, because somebody asked about Georgia, what happened in Georgia. I did a lot about this. For our polling, we had David Perdue in the 20s. He got in the 20s. We had Candace Taylor, in the single digits, which she got in the single digits. We were like right there on all those losing candidates. Kemp, however, was falling in our polling. We had him at 53 in the poll 2 weeks before the election. In May, it was higher than that. No, early May, in the beginning of May. He was higher and seemed to be going in the wrong direction. The only way that I can make sense with the polling we did versus the result on is that like literally every single undecided voter went with Kemp. What the hell is your thoughts on it? Even you, because I showed you, even in like the insurance commissioner race, we had the tier correct, but King got all the undecideds. Looks like in the Secretary of State, it was like 2-1 Raffensperger. There is an incumbent eye on the ballot in Georgia that may have something to do with it. Just a bunch. Robert said, after I told him all the things, his take was a bunch of first time primary, but yet still uninformed voters, who went with the incumbent. And I got to kind of agree with him because 60% told us they didn't know who Donald Trump endorsed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you make what happened in Georgia? We, though, unlike others, didn't have Perdue at like almost 4%. We had him at 24%. He got 22%. So we never had him getting above that, that challenging hurdle.
Yeah, and I think if you process all the data, and I know you've done that and all the great polling you've had here recently on it, when you process all this is one of those cases where it's about who can win the general, right? So I think the Kemp vote especially, I think people are scared. I think conservatives, Republicans in Georgia are scared to death of what a Governor Stacey Abrams would look like, right? I think that they're pretty nervous about that. So I think this is just one of those ones where people took a look and said, I think they held the nose. They held their nose and said, he's got the best chance. I agree that she would match up better against Perdue than she will against Kemp. Kemp, the more moderate guy. So I just think this was one of those things where people were looking ahead to that. But I got asked a question on social media. Somebody messaged me, Chris, and he wanted to know, what about the Donald Trump endorsement? Why does it seem to not have the same impact in Georgia as it did in the other primaries that we watched? And I think that's a great question. I think kind of what I was talking about there with Kemp, I think kind of answers part of that. But I was also looking at the situation with like Mike Collins. We both know Mike, and I think that was interesting to me that's going to a runoff now with him and Vernon Jones. I think that is a good question though. Is Donald Trump less impactful in Georgia? I mean, by results, I guess you would have to say yes, but I thought that was a good question. So I want to throw that out there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt a regional element to the impact that Donald Trump has on endorsements. I think in the Midwest and in most southern states, it's incredibly powerful, while the plain states and the certain areas of the Sun Belt, it's not. Now, in Florida, it is. So you can't say that part of the Sun Belt. But like Georgia, definitely. And there are some elements, like remember Alabama? There's some elements in Alabama that weren't, stoked about Trump's endorsement of Luther Strange. And there's this Southern Republican establishment. Yeah, South Carolina. In South Carolina, one. So I think it's a little bit of a combination of everything we've been talking about. I think you're right. I even told you there was definitely a feeling among Republicans that Kemp was a stronger candidate, and I don't agree with that. But I have to, I'm a pollster and I have to relay what people told me, and they told me they were afraid David Perdue could not beat Stacey Abrams. And also, I think, again, it's attitudinal, Donald Trump's appeal. And that's why the Rust Belt, he's so strong. You get that Trump endorsement, your opponent is done. And then Florida, which is different because it's like a hodgepodge of all the stuff, right? And Florida also reminds you more of a Rust Belt state than a southern state. It's totally, it's its own animal.
And I got to throw this out there because it's in the back of my mind right now and has been throughout this process. I wonder how many people in Georgia feel a sense of blame or put some blame on Donald Trump for the two runoffs that took place where we lost 2 Senate seats. Do they blame him for that,
Laura made that point that it's a two-edged sword. She said maybe some of them were pissed that they lost some of the Senate seats. And also on the flip side of that, you had all those central and southern Trumpers who were pissed at Purdue for not getting involved more. It was just like a combination of the total wrong things. And then again, to me, that 60% not knowing who the hell Donald Trump endorses a failure of candidates. I mean, I have to be brutally honest here. If you get the Trump endorsement and go move or go on vacation instead of running and barnstorming the state with ads with yourself working, that's why I tout David Giglio all the time, because when people work, they deserve to be honored for that work. A lot of people, and it because you've seen it, they get this endorsement and then they just I'm going to win. It. I got on Ted Budd months ago. Get your out there. And he did, right? And look what happened, 60%. But that could have went a very different way. Pat McCrory could have beat him. People didn't ground game. It is about the ground game.
Yep.
I mean, I'm telling you, if I'm polling Georgia Republicans or people who say they're going to vote in the Republican primary, and 60% have no idea who Donald Trump endorsed 2 weeks before the election, there's something went wrong here, my friend. Something went horribly wrong, because any candidate or client that has the Trump endorsement, they better be out there knocking on doors, telling everybody, you better send every voter 3-4 reminders you've been endorsed by Trump on their cell phones. Whatever you got to do.
Yep.
Whatever you got to do. Mailers are a waste of money, by the way.
And I mentioned the Mike Collins thing, right? So and that was one of the things with him is he is a
help Vernon there.
He is out there working. So I really was a little bit surprised that was as close as it was, because I just thought he outworked him. But just everybody remember, Donald Trump won that race 2016 because he just outworked her to Hillary Clinton to a level that was unbelievable. Barack Obama was their nominee in 2008 because he outworked Hillary Clinton. He just flat out outworked her.
He also outworked Mitt Romney. Let's be honest. He outworked Mitt Romney. He outworked the hell out of Mitt Romney.
Yep, great point.
And to that effect, George Bush outworked John Kerry.
Yep.
He defined him early. He got on the ground. He won Ohio barely. Iowa barely, and he won Ohio because he worked.
Ronald Reagan, same thing.
That's right. So
nobody wins president without working
up there. Ground game. She's right, man. That matters. That really matters.
Big time.
All right, I'm going to take us out. I'm going to take us out here before we do, because I got to go give somebody a call before the deadline here. But what's on the agenda for Saturday, my friend? And people don't miss it, because we're going to go over some stuff in detail here.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So obviously you'll be on with some of the latest polling, and I'm really looking forward to that. It's good stuff to be going over. Perfect timing to do it, as we've always talked about. Peter Hussey with National Security. I've got a guy, Mike Rose. He's a lawyer. He's representing 2 of the 3 cadets who are trying to kick them out of the military academies, not allowing them to graduate because they refuse to get the vaccine. He's representing 2 of the 3. So he's going to give us the latest on that. They want these guys now to pay back, guys and gals. They want them to pay for their own tuition. Because they didn't get the jab, and so now they have to pay $250,000. Anyway, he's got all the details with that. Really interesting what's going on with our academies, because they're kind of buckling a little bit and going. The PR is not good on this for the military academies. Anyway, we've also got America's Sheriff David Clark on tomorrow, and we're going to go over how to secure these schools. What do we do? We're going to go over some of the stuff because there's all this misinformation stuff with everything that happened. The timeline is all messed up. We're getting all new information now. So we're going to kind of go through. I mean, he's obviously somebody who was trained to do those kind of things. So Sheriff David Clark will be with us tomorrow live. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, hoping for more information, to come out. But I was listening to Bernie Carrick, man. He was like, me, I'm pro-police. This is a complete disaster. Hopefully there are things that can explain some of the stuff we're seeing and hearing or have saw and heard. But again, folks, before you give up your right to defend yourself and the means by which you can do so, remember who it is they expect to protect you and how well they've done to do that. Not very well is the answer. All right, my friend. Yeah, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, the Don Smith Show. Then Laura's putting it up right there, donsmithshow.locals.com. Also, Don Smith Show on Rumble. And we'll see you there. Don't miss it. Noon Eastern Standard Time.
Let me say one more thing. I've been promising everybody for the last 2 weeks that we're going to have former Governor Scott Walker on.
Yeah.
So not this week, but we will have him on the following week. I've already got the pre-tape set, and we'll get that done. So we will have.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
Looking forward. He's always a great interview, and you had Rebecca Clayfish on 2 weeks ago. For people who didn't see that, she is just she is a great interview. But check her out, because what I loved is Don put up the moments before the interview. To show you that that's just Rebecca Clayfish. That's who she is. She's a breath of fresh air, even though she was Scott Walker's number 2. What it takes to be a number 2 when you do something like that, Don, when you try to make change like that. One of
the things that's so cool is Scott Walker is that way too. So the fact that they were together running that state, because Scott Walker is totally like that. You don't know, you can't tell whether the mic's on, the mic's off, the camera's on, the camera's off. He's just Scott Walker. So.
Yeah, man. The only other candidate, Republican presidential candidate, which I think, the campaign was a little bit different, but he himself, who had appeal to that very different Republican nomination electorate, he was the only other one that when we were polling, that had that appeal. So I could win the Iowa caucus and still win New Hampshire, the more moderate primary, and take that momentum in South Carolina. It was the only other one who had that. And it's attitudinal, but it's also because he's so authentic.
Yeah.
And that really gets rewarded by voters, man. It does, if you do it right, but that's George Will's wife for you. She should have saw the strength in that. All right. So we're going to kick rocks here, folks. We'll see you at noon Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Thanks as always. Give Brenda our love. Laura's got something to say.
And just remember,
I thought it was
you
deuces.
had a veteran that paid the
Oh my
price.
God.
That's
Listen, Monday, we will see them all before that, though. But yes, Memorial Day weekend. Remember, of course, what it is all about. It is for people who have given the ultimate sacrifice for this country, family. If you have, and those families that obviously make that sacrifice along with them. So, of course, remember that, honor it, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Love
all right, all the best, folks.
Bye.
Always, and right back at you, Don. Give Brenda our best and our love. Talk to you soon, okay?
All right. Love you too.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
Good
Deuces.
weekend, safe weekend. Deuces.
Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just
us a way to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me,